Hey guys, welcome to my beginner's guide to the technical aspects of playing the devious imposter class of Dreadhunger, the Thrall.
In this guide, I'll be detailing exactly what the Thrall is trying to do, how to physically do those things, and why you'd even want to do those actions. This guide will focus solely on the Thrall. There are a lot of ways to play the Thrall, but I'll be focusing on teaching you to understand the basics first. Then you should be able to go out into the Arctic and successfully execute your own creative strategies. It's presumed that you've seen my beginner's guide for crewmate, also on this channel, to save time re-explaining many of the basic gameplay points covered in that guide, and allow more time for a more detailed explanation into Thrall.
Alrighty, the three goals of this video are
1. Understand the win condition of Thrall. 2. Easily perform any and all actions that are unique to the Thralls. And 3. Understand what each Thrall action does and why you would choose to perform that action in-game.
the first and arguably most important goal of this guide is for anyone watching to clearly understand the Thrall's win condition. So, the game begins and you're lucky enough to get Thrall. What are you trying to do? And how do you win?
Well, Thralls win the game by preventing the expedition from reaching open waters. There are a lot of ways to do this, and it's extremely important to keep the end goal in mind when deciding what play to make next. You could win simply by killing every single crew member in the game. It requires a lot of PvP and some mechanical skill, but it's definitely possible. Alternatively, you could stall the game out until the crew die to the blizzard on the final day. This method takes longer, but it really lets you get creative with how you play, as you simply need to slow down the crew's progress, which is a nice change from needing to kill every single crew member yourself. Whether you're killing, stalling, or something in between, set yourself a goal at the start of the game and do everything in your power to stick to that goal. Keep that win condition in the back of your head and you'll be able to make decisive, wise decisions instead of in-the-moment mistakes that could lead to you getting caught or even killed.
On to goal number 2. I'd like anyone watching to know and be able to perform any and all Thrall actions in-game.
This goal is to ensure that everyone watching this video knows how to physically do Thrall actions, such as pulling out and using your bone dagger to cast a spell, or how to build a totem. This is the order I'll be going through the Thrall actions, so you can easily skip to the actions you aren't sure on. 1. Using your bone knife and casting each spell. 2. Using Thrall Vision. 3. Building bone totems. 4. Finding and eating human meat. 5. Sabotaging the ship's boiler. 6. Crafting thrall items. 7. Escaping the brig.
This section is how to physically do these things. I'll explain what each of these actions actually do during goal number 3.
Number 1. How to access your bone knife and how to cast each spell. Each Thrall has a secret bone knife they spawn into the game with that they can use to cast spells that influence the match. The bone knife is unique to Thralls, so don't let a crewmate see you holding the bone knife, as it will 100% guarantee you're a Thrall, no questions asked. To access your bone knife, press C on your keyboard. If this doesn't work, check your input settings to see what key is binded to your bone knife here. Once your bone knife is in your hand, you have 2 options. If you left click, you can attack relatively quickly with it as a melee weapon. It does low damage, but it's better than just your fists. Your second option is to press and hold the right click mouse button. When you do, you'll be met with a menu of spells. You'll come to learn their symbols and position over time, but the top left is Spirit Walk, the top right is Whiteout, and the bottom middle is Cannibals. Simply drag whilst you're still holding down right click in the direction of the spell you want to cast and release your right click to cast it. There's an extra step for cannibals. After holding right click and dragging to cannibals, you still need to point at the desired target and left click on them to cast the spell. A spell can only be cast if you have at least the minimum charge of 1 tick of your power meter shown in the bottom right. To charge this up quicker, you'll need to build bone totems, which we'll cover shortly. Number 2. Using Thrall Vision is simple. Press V on your keyboard. You're now using Thrall Vision until you press the same key again to cancel it. The button to use Thrall Vision can be changed, similar to accessing your bone knife, and you cannot sprint while using Thrall Vision. Number 3. To build a bone totem, locate 1 bone and 3 wood from around the map. Press and hold Q on your keyboard, the default crafting button, and you'll have 2 options. The left one is the standard campfire all crewmates and thralls can make, and the right one is the bone totem, only accessible to thralls. Drag to the totem and release your right click. You now have a bone totem on your screen which can be placed by left clicking while the totem is in an area that it can be placed in. It will glow red if it cannot be placed on the ground where you're trying to put it. Once it's down, you need to press and hold the interact button, E, on your keyboard. You'll begin crafting the totem, and after a short time, the totem will be crafted. You can build an infinite amount of totems. Number 4. Human meat can be found on human corpses, either the corpses that spawn in various shelters around the map, or the dead bodies of cannibals and other players. You can harvest the meat and eat it either raw or cooked.
Number 5. To sabotage the ship's boiler, place 1 gunpowder into the boiler while it's running. The gunpowder will destroy all the fuel in the boiler between 4 and 20 seconds after you put the gunpowder in as of patch 0.10.3. The gunpowder can be placed either directly into the boiler or through the chute in the captain's quarters.
Number 6. There are 2 craftable items which are exclusive to Thrall, powder kegs and poison. These 2 items are blue for Thrall, cannot be crafted by crewmates, and will appear as red items should a crewmate find one a Thrall has left behind. When you're playing Thrall, you want to make the absolute most of these items to slow the crew down when possible. First, powder kegs. To craft a powder keg, simply head to the crafting table with a barrel and 5 gunpowder in hand. Should you be short on gunpowder, as a Thrall, you have the option to craft gunpowder through the workbench by destroying a piece of coal. Doing this destroys the coal and returns 2 gunpowder for use. Once you have the gunpowder, there will be the option to craft a powder keg, which looks like this. Click the powder keg icon, and after a short time, it will be crafted. To light a powder keg, select the powder keg in your inventory so that it's being held in your hands, and left click. This will light the powder keg. You can then drop the powder keg somewhere discreet by pressing F on your keyboard, or you can hold right click and then press left click to throw it a further distance. After 20 seconds, the powder keg will explode. The time the powder keg takes to explode is not influenced by the time you spend holding the keg with it lit in your arms. The timer starts when the keg leaves your arms. You will need to defuse the powder keg if you place it when it's lit in order to pick it up again. The second Thrall exclusive item is poison. To create poison, bring 3 herbs to a stove. And for Thrall, and only Thrall, poison will be amongst the possible items to make on the stove along the top. Click the poison icon, and after a short time, it will be created in the stove. To use the poison, drag the poison icon onto a poisonable resource. Items that can be poisoned include raw meat, cooked meat, bones, stew, laudanum, syringes, antidote, and herbs. The item you drag the poison onto will become poisoned. All items in the item stack you drag the poison onto will also be poisoned. To use a poison syringe on someone, have the syringe selected, then left click when you're near your target. If you're close enough and the syringe hits them, it will inject and use the syringe. Number 7. If you're ever killed as a thrall, don't give up. You will respawn in the brig, and after a short time, seen in the bottom right, you can release yourself from the prison by spirit walking away. You require 2 things to escape. The timer in the bottom right needs to have reached 0, and you need to have enough charge to use the spirit walk power. This is a good time to check an option I'd recommend setting up for when you play Thrall. Press escape and go into your game settings. Under game, make sure the scroll past Thrall items is checked. This will prevent your character from accessing the Thrall exclusive items, paddock eggs and poison, through your mouse scroll wheel, which is one of the primary ways of accessing your items for use. You will need to click the number associated with the item slot you put the item in to access these Thrall items. This prevents you from accidentally flashing your Thrall items to nearby crewmates as you scroll through your items, trying to access a different one.
Now, onto the third and final goal of this video. What do each of these Thrall actions do, and why would you want to perform them in-game? I'll also cover the risks associated with each action so you can understand the ways you may be caught performing a Thrall action and killed by the crew.
Number 1. The Bone Knife allows the use of 3 spells: Spirit Walk, Whiteout, and Cannibals. Spirit Walk effectively turns the Thrall who cast it invisible for a short time, between 15 and 25 seconds depending on the charge of the spell. During this time, the Thrall can quickly traverse the map, moving even quicker if they hold the shift key. The Thrall cannot be damaged whilst they're spirit walking and cannot interact with anything, including ladders. As of patch 0.10.2, the Bone Dagger can be seen floating through the air by an observant crewmate if a Thrall is using Spirit Walk nearby. To remove it, simply holster your Bone Dagger by pressing X on your keyboard. This will allow you to Spirit Walk without fear of being seen by any crewmates until your time runs out. The second spell is Whiteout. When cast, a map-wide whiteout will fill the map, significantly impairing vision. A whiteout makes it far more difficult to locate the ship for crewmates and will waste their time as crew get lost or circle round and round the ship trying to get back but are afraid to start swimming in case they miss the ship and freeze to death. The whiteout will also blow out heat sources like campfires faster and will last between 1 and 2 minutes depending on the power of the spell. There is a lot a Thrall can do with the crew's vision limited. Sneaking on and off the ship is far easier, and devious acts will be easier to get away with. The final spell is Cannibals. Using the spell will summon a bunch of cannibals on your desired target, between 4 and 8 cannibals depending on the charge. These cannibals run quickly and viciously at the player you sent them on. They'll bite, slash, and throw rocks at the player until the cannibals are killed or they kill their target. Cannibals do minimal damage and have approximately 35 health, so using them as a method of slowing down a crewmate or causing chaos in an important area can be very effective. Once the cannibals are killed, their bodies can be harvested for human meat and items. A map-wide sound effect will also play when cannibals are cast, which alerts the whole crew that cannibals have been summoned and are on their way. An important note here. Whenever you cast a spell using your Bone Dagger, an animation plays where your character stabs their hand with the Bone Dagger as a sort of blood offering to perform the spell. This blood isn't just an animation for you. It leaves a pool of blood in front of your feet on the ground where you cast the spell. So whenever you cast the spell with your Bone Dagger, be mindful of who's around you, as even if they didn't see you cast the spell, an experienced crewmate may go looking for the pool of blood and stumble upon evidence of your guilt. The blood lasts 30 seconds, after which it will disappear from the map. When you cast a spell, there is also a distinct sound that plays, which has a relatively short range. Ensuring other players are outside this short range is an easy way to avoid getting caught by this. Similarly, when exiting Spirit Walk, your character makes a loud audible gasp. This can be heard by players in a relatively short range, decreasing in how loud it is the further you are away from a player. Number 2. Thrall Vision allows the Thrall to effectively gain wall hacks, as they can see the location of all players on the map with the press of a button. Crewmates and other living things are highlighted in red, whilst your Thrall partner will be highlighted in blue, as will your totems. Using Thrall Vision limits your movement. Crewmates could see you suddenly stop running and walking slowly whilst looking around, which will make them think that you're using Thrall Vision and thus a Thrall.
Using Thrall Vision prevents you from gaining spell charge. This will mainly only impact you when you're anxiously waiting for a spell, such as Spirit Walk whilst locked in the brig after your first death. Make sure you aren't just sitting in the brig with your Thrall Vision on the entire time. You won't charge up your Spirit Walk, and you'll be in there a long time.
Quick tip here. Set your post-processing setting to at least medium. If you leave it on low, your Thrall Vision will not allow you to see through darkness and whiteout. With the setting on medium, the difference is huge, giving you the outline of nearby buildings, the ship, objects, things like that, and gives the Thralls a massive advantage when moving during whiteout.
Number 3. Building bone totems is a must for Thralls, as they increase how quickly your spell charge regenerates. But how much time are you actually saving? Is it really worth setting up totems? And if so, how many? Take a look at the table below, which has the times taken to gain each tick of charge, depending on how many totems you have. As you can see, there is a massive difference between 0 totems and 1 totem, and getting that second totem is also a significant jump. The first totem is the most important to get down, saving you over 7 minutes. So working to get at least that first totem up is an absolute priority as Thrall. Every subsequent totem after the first provides less additional charge than that first totem, capping at 10. Any totems built after your 10th will act as a sort of safety net, allowing you to maintain maximum charge speed should some of the totems be destroyed. It's my recommendation to get 3 totems down before the end of the first night. If you're able to do this in a secure location, those totems will carry your Bone Dagger usage for the rest of the game. Any additional totems after that are nice, but aren't an absolute necessity to succeed and keep up with the crew's pace, especially against experienced crews who set a blistering speed getting the ship to the end, if left unhindered. You can see the amount of charge your Bone Dagger has in the meter in the bottom right. Each of these lines represent an additional charge to a maximum of 3 when the meter is full. Your spell's power will change depending on the amount of charge you have. Totems emit a distinct sound that sounds like this. The sound can be heard from about 10 meters, so building these totems around crewmates can be risky and will be evidence of your guilt if you're caught near them without destroying them. Taking the time to set up totems somewhere safe, away from prying eyes, will allow for maximum potential in your Thrall games and keep the crew busy. On screen now are a couple of tried and tested locations where I like to build totems in-game that seem to be in locations that crewmates don't stumble upon, at least not after the first day. Getting those totems up as soon as possible is wonderful, but it does take time to build multiple. So make sure you aren't away from the ship for too long, otherwise you'll start looking suspicious. Number 4. Human meat provides extra heat for Thralls when consumed, about half your heat meter, so stockpiling up on human meat can allow you to be active out in a cold night without freezing to death or needing to seek out refuge in a nearby shelter. Cooking up the meat will give you more hunger when consumed, while still providing you the warmth. Cooked human meat will appear as normal cooked meat to crew, so it won't be suspicious should a player see you eating cooked human meat. However, raw human meat has a distinct look, and eating it should be kept away from prying eyes. Human meat will be noticed if it disappears off a body, especially the corpses in many of the shelters, as it basically all but confirms a thrall has been there and taken it. Perhaps you can claim you were a crewmate who got desperate or wanted to make a cannibal stew, but ideally we're trying to prevent any suspicion from coming your way at all, so be careful when you take the human meat. Number 5. Sabotaging the boiler will destroy all the fuel currently in the boiler. This can be huge, as you're preventing the ship from advancing, and you have between 4 and 20 seconds to get yourself an alibi. Now, experienced crewmates will have guards set up to prevent sabotages, usually their most trusted crew members watching the boiler. So setting yourself up as one of the guards to sabotage or having someone to blame to take the heat off you is ideal, and worth taking the extra time to set up before you sabotage. Number 6. What do thrall items do, and why would you use them? Well, powder kegs damage the ship's hull when exploded, causing up to 10 leaks on detonation, depending on where it's placed. These leaks need to be repaired by the crew to prevent the ship from sinking. The ship can have a maximum of 20 leaks at any given time and will take on water slowly until it's fixed. It currently takes 7 minutes and 33 seconds for the ship to sink with 20 holes if left unrepaired in patch 0.10.3. Powder kegs are sneaky and discreet, giving you up to 20 seconds to reposition, but if you aren't careful, will land you in hot water. Visually, they are distinctly different to barrels, namely due to the fuse at the top of the barrel. If you're seen holding a powder keg, you need to use it and get out there as soon as possible, or try to explain away that you found it and used it as a crewmate. I don't know. A bit of a difficult one to get out of. Powder kegs also make a sound when they land, which can be heard from a short range, so be careful when placing it, not to be caught running out of a room where a powder keg was just placed. Damaging the ship's hull will slow down the ship's movement significantly, effectively halting progress until it's repaired. The second thrall item, poison, is a slow but deadly way to kill the crew, with it taking some time to act. Once it's in a crewmate, it takes between 30 seconds and 1 minute and 30 seconds to take effect. You'll know it's taken effect when a crewmate starts throwing up a green substance. The first 2 vomits will take 1/3 of the player's health each, and each subsequent vomit will take a small amount of health after that. Should the player be unable to find an antidote, the player will die once they've lost all their health to the poison without a chance to recover. Poison can be ingested through food, injected through syringes, or even be present in an antidote, which will cure the player, then poison the target again shortly after. Poison can decimate an unprepared crew, or at the very least, take their health away and slow the crew's progress. Number 7. Escaping the brig has its pros and cons. On one hand, you're able to escape the brig to access your second chance life, which is great, but the downside is it effectively 100% confirms you as a thrall. Crew can use this to test if you're a thrall, killing you and seeing if you escape. But on the other side, thralls can out themselves early, go for broke, and if unsuccessful, they can let themselves out after a short time and try again. I'd like to leave you with this. When you're lucky enough to get a thrall game, don't let your nerves get the better of you. Control them and go for broke. Just try out whatever strategy you're able to think up and push yourself to make it work. Practice makes perfect. So mastering the mechanics of Thrall and knowing what your best option is in-game will take time. Keep at it and stay tuned for my next Thrall guide, Deception Thrall, How to Blend, where I'll break down how to blend in with the crew and play a mean Deception Thrall game in Dreadhunger. Anywho, thanks for watching. Hopefully you now feel prepared for your next Thrall match and know what in the world you're trying to do. Please like the video if you enjoyed the guide and subscribe for more Dread Hunger videos. Good luck out in the Arctic and watch out for Bongo.